Hey, my name is Andrew. I am the director of Rotviska, and I think by the time you're watching this, you will have hopefully experienced the show. I'm sure you have lots of questions and curiosities about some of the choices that we made and some of the approaches that we took in building this experience for your young people. And hopefully I can provide a little bit of insight into some ideas or thoughts that you could apply in your classroom with your students, potentially in response to this show, or more just in general around creative engagement with disabled children and young people. When we build theatre in this way, as an experience designed specifically for children who have complex disabilities, the considerations on the preferences of those young people comes before anything. It's always about what ideas and strategies we can implement that will benefit the child's experience of the show. We have the privilege as theatre makers to make an entertaining experience for your students, and we have the luxury as artists to only have to worry about that. So we're always very conscious that when we work with schools, that you as educators and teachers or classroom assistants have a lot of demands and have a lot of other priorities that you need to keep in mind. So I think the best place to start is to think about the simple sensory engagement of your pupils. How can you adapt the environment around the child to be the most controlled, most peaceful, calm setting you can create, so that you can be exciting with other sensory inputs, so that you can push boundaries with that young person. If you're thinking about being creative and engaging the pupils in your care within your classroom, do a little assessment of your classroom space. Think about all of the inputs that are impacting on your pupils inside that room. Is there bright daylight coming through the windows? What's happening outside? Is it noisy? Think about the influences of that environment on the young person and how you can control that and have a greater sense of peace within your setting. So if you have an object in your classroom, it might be a feather fan. What color is it? How does it sound whenever you open it and you close it? How does it feel whenever you use it to create wind? How does it feel when you touch it? Does it feel different whenever it's on your hands, or does it feel different if it's on your cheeks? So we explore every object that you want to work with for all of the outputs it offers in a sensory way. So find something in your classroom, decide what you like about it. Start with you as the teacher. What do I like about this item? And try to see what other things you can use it for. So explore its textures, explore its smell, explore its color. And if I have a blue thing of this, how different is it if I change the color? And then take those observations and those discoveries to the young person and see what they like. If it's a bouncy ball, how does it feel? Does it squeeze? Is it hard? Is it warm? Is it cold? How does it bounce? What happens if I change its color? What happens if I change its texture? What happens if it doesn't bounce, but it just lands in a lump on the floor? You start to look at every object around you as a potential tool for engagement, and that's what we did in Rotviska. So we have a moment in the show where we discover stones, and those stones vibrate. And the story that we're telling in that moment is that an earthquake is beginning to come towards us, and it's vibrating the earth around the tree, and those stones start to carry that energy because they begin to vibrate. And we found during rehearsals that one of the most exciting things we could do in this scene is have big rocks that we can touch and we can move around, but wouldn't it be exciting if we made them actually vibrate? So that became a really strong choice in our show that we built an entire scene around. And that's a very simple thing. So if it helps you in the classroom, pick a theme, pick a place. Are you sailing on a boat? And if you were sailing on a boat at sea, How would that sound? How would that feel? Is it calm? Can you hear the wind? Okay, I want to hear the wind at sea. What can I use in my classroom to create the sensation of wind? So it might be a stack of paper or card that you can then shake and move around to create these gentle breezing winds around the boat. But if we're at sea, maybe there is some water. So how can I introduce water play into this activity? So you start to create a theme in which you can explore the sensory engagement. And that's essentially how we make the show. We decide the story that we're telling, and then we explore ways to tell the story in an exciting way. We have the luxury of playing with designers, so we can ask our composer and sound designer to give us music that inspires us in a different way. We can ask our lighting designer to light up our beautiful set in a way that helps us tell the story. But you can do that in the classroom, and you can do that small scale. So you can turn the lights off. You can bring in some special UV lights, a little torch like we use in the show, to discover things around the classroom that present differently under UV light. Or you can set up a mini tent in your classroom, bring in a new space, something to discover, something to explore. And inside that tent is one tiny speaker, and it sounds different from the rest of the classroom. So pick what you're trying to tell. Pick a story. Keep it simple. Start with a place. Decide an exciting place. And then start to add in sensory elements that help you depict that place and help you set up a scene for your young person in a really simple, accessible, and exciting way. The theatre that you've seen today, or whenever you came to the show, everything in it is simple, but it's delivered with the right intention. It's delivered with space for response. It's delivered with freedom for the child. And the goal through this theatre is to make them happy, but also to give them an opportunity to express themselves. So how can you create an environment in which your pupil can present their preferences to you? We work a lot with sensory capacity, with theory being that everybody receives the inputs around them as sensory inputs. And that is through the light, through the sound, through the smell, through the touch. So everything that happens around that young person is having an influence on their ability to engage. So by controlling the things that we want to control, it opens up a broader spectrum of play that we can experiment with. So we can play with music with young people who typically don't like music, because we have a controlled setting in which we can introduce that. So try turning the lights off, try closing the curtains, try switching off any TVs or computers. If you make toast in the classroom, don't make any toast. Try to control all of the other sensory environment around that young person, and then turn the music on. But don't turn it on at full volume. Turn it on quiet, and then begin to fade the sound up and see how that young person responds. If you have a young person that you would think doesn't necessarily like somebody in costume, try to think about the setting in which that young person has engaged with somebody in costume. It could be a clown that's come into the classroom. You want to find out if it's really that thing that is the problem for that child, or is it the setting around it that is causing too much stimulus, having too big an impact on that child, that they can't absorb the sensory inputs of the person in costume. So be brave, but in a way that is so considerate of your pupil. It's hard to do in a classroom as a teacher if you've got lots of pupils. So if you're working with many pupils, just try to get a general sense of sensory control in your classroom and start with small things. Introduce the texture of the material in a very simple way and put some calm, peaceful music on in the background. But try to control everything else so that they're not being overstimulated by the rest of the environment. They're not being dominated by the sound of children playing in the playground outside. They're not being dominated by the smell of food being cooked from the kitchens, or one of your colleagues typing on the keyboard, catching up on missed work. Try to give it full focus as an activity that is the only thing that is happening in the room at that time. And what we find is you make big discoveries about young people that you normally wouldn't find. It questions your knowledge on the child because you see them in a different way. You give them empowerment to express new preferences, and it unlocks the door to educational discoveries and ways that you can develop their learning journey in your classroom as well. So we are often told, a lot of the young people that come to see our shows, we are often told that they can't do things, that there are things that they can't do. They won't like this, and they can't engage in this way. And we exist as artists to question that, but we question that with research, and we question that with practice, and we take tiny steps. So it's all about small decisions. Make a small choice, introduce something in a way that is controllable, that you can always come back from. So our performers always think about how they travel to the child and how they travel away from the child. And distance sometimes creates the best interaction, because you can perform for a child, and that's what gives them the opportunity to gain trust in the interaction. So maybe you play with the material in front of them and you show them all the nice things about it. Maybe you listen to the music, and then they might get curious about it because you've proven to them that it's safe. So anything you do, take your time, move slowly, and also be brave. But be brave in a way that understands and respects exactly who that child is. And every child is independent from each other. They are completely unique. So every child requires a completely unique process. But yeah, take consideration, back yourself. All of the strategies that I use in my theatre are learned from teachers in schools. We see things in the classroom that inspires us as artists, and then we have the opportunity to turn that into theatre, and then those teachers see the piece of theatre and wonder how we did it. But the reality is, we get our ideas from you. Everything we do is stolen from the classroom, and we use you as a point of inspiration. So you don't need us to be able to do this in the classroom. Just enjoy being creative and deliver it with focus and excitement and engagement, and your pupils will love you for it.